guys, welcome to Taste of Love. I'm Marini and today we are making Jolly Rancher candy grapes. So before we get started, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, click on the subscribe button and turn on your post notifications so you'll be notified every single time a new video drops. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so here we have our supplies. We have our Cairo syrup, white food coloring, blue food coloring, toothpicks, Jolly Rancher, grapes, and a 1 cup measuring cup. So before we get started, we're gonna prep our grapes. Our grapes have already been washed and dried. They were dried using a paper towel. And now we're going to insert the toothpicks into our grapes so that we can dip them in the candy. Now, when it comes to dipping the toothpicks, when it comes to putting the toothpicks into the grapes, you can't put it where you remove the grape from the stem. On this side, you put it on the opposite side, on the bottom. So you run the toothpick through the bottom of the grape so that when you shake it and you dip it, it won't fall off. So we're going to insert our toothpicks into all of our grapes. Make sure you go through your bag of grapes really carefully, because a lot of the time some of the grapes are rotten and they're deforming, so you don't want to dip those grapes into candy. So we're going to stick them all, and then you want to put the toothpick not just a little bit in so that when you go like that it'll fall off, but more all the way in so when you shake it, because you would have to shake off that excess candy, it wouldn't fall off. And then you put it all the way in so that it's sturdy, so that it really holds on to the grape. You can use any other food color that you want also. I'm using blue because I wanted mine to be blue. And I'm going to flavor it with the blue Jolly Rancher candies also. But I'm going to show you guys that in 1 second. So you'd also need your thermometer and a deep size pot because sometimes your candy batter does bubble up. For this recipe, we're doing the 4-1-1 method. So we're using 4 cups of sugar, 1 cup of Cairo syrup, and 1 cup of water. Now, if you do put your toothpick all the way through and it comes through the top, it doesn't matter because when you slip it out after you dip it in candy, it'll still come easily out. Okay, so right now we're going to add our ingredients to the pot to make our candy batter. So we're going to add 4 cups of sugar, one cup of water, and our Cairo syrup. Now I'm going to add a few drops of white food coloring, and I'm also going to add the blue, and just 2 drops of the blue. Now I'm going to start my stove and turn it up to 7.5 so that my candy batter can cook. And we're going to leave our candy batter to cook until it gets to 300 degrees. Okay, you see the colors is getting all mixed up on its own. This is why I don't mix it. Because I like when gets mixed from cooking, it gives a more even mixture than if you try to mix it up. But that's just what I like. So this is why I didn't mix it when I put the colors in. Alright, our candy has finished cooking. It's gotten to 300 degrees. Look at how pretty that blue is. So we're going to take our pot off of the hot stove and then we're going to get ready to dip our grapes. Okay, so I have my pot angled to the side. It's leaning on the stove just so that the angle would be, I guess, kind of able to tilt all my batter down so that I can get it. And what I have here is my food processor, which I'm going to crush up my Jolly Ranchers with. So I'm just going to drop some of the Jolly Ranchers into my food processor and crush them up real quick. And the reason I wait for my candy to be done cooking while I do this is because I don't want my candy to, well, not my candy batter, but the Jolly Rancher candy to get sticky and stick together, and then it's hard to use. So I'm just going to drop them in here really quick and blend it up. So I'm opening my blue candy first because what I'm going to do is take this blue candy and drop it into my candy batter so that it'll flavor it. And I'm just putting 2 of them in here. The candy is hot, so it will melt it. So now I'm going to drop my Jolly Ranchers in here really quickly so we can just crush them up. If you don't have a food processor, you can put them in 3 Ziploc bags. I will triple bag it and then use a rolling pin and crush it. That method has worked for me personally for a little while before I started putting it in the fruit processor. The food processor just makes it more fine and more dusted than really chunky. And I like it finer than more chunkier, because if you ever ate candy grapes, you know that when you put it in your mouth to bite into it, if it's really chunky, it can like scratch the top of your mouth and it's really painful. So I'm just putting all my candy in here. And I don't really need a lot because we only did a little bit of grapes. Okay, so I have all the Jolly Ranchers that I want in here. Now I am going to turn it on so we can crush these up. Nice and fine. Now I'm going to take them and pour them out into a little bowl so that we can go ahead and dip our grapes into our candy mixture and add Jolly Ranchers to them. I'll move this to the side. Nice and crushed. So now we're going to go ahead and dip our grapes into our candy. So here's my grape. I'm going to dip it into my candy, shake it off, and then roll it into my Jolly Ranchers. And there we go. That's how it's going to look. You see it? So now let's dip all of them. Shake it off because we don't want the excess candy to be steady. And also, I use a spoon to keep the Jolly Rancher constantly mixed. You can use a fork also, it doesn't really matter. Because if you let your Jolly Rancher sit still, it will start clumping up and get hard. I'm gonna dip them all. And I would suggest putting them in the refrigerator immediately after dipping. I do suggest putting your candy grapes in the refrigerator immediately after dipping because it does get sticky and it starts melting almost immediately. Candy grapes is one of the fruits that will melt really, really fast. Like really, really fast. From the minute you dip the grapes into the candy, it starts to melt. Because grapes are a water-based fruit, so they don't last very long. You can put your grapes in the freezer after you dip them to try to lengthen how long they last, but it does not lengthen it by much, maybe by just a couple hours. And putting it in the freezer would not change the taste. It would still have the same great taste. So we're going to go ahead and keep dipping and then add the Jolly Ranchers to them. Look at how pretty that color is. Now the reason we add white food coloring is so that the color does not become transparent. If you don't add white food coloring to your candy will be transparent, meaning that you can see right through and you can see your fruit. Like if you guys remember in the candy tangerine video, we didn't use any color, so the candy was clear. Your candy will be clear with like a light color if you don't put the white food coloring in it. The white food coloring is what gives it the background basically, so that your grapes can turn into a different color. So they won't be like, you know, green with a light blue look. And I've tried dipping red grapes. However, red grapes are really, really, really sweet. So they're not as tasty as using green grapes. I think it's more delicious with the green grapes because the sweetness weighs out with the sour to give it a nice taste. But with the red grapes, it's just overly sour. I mean overly sweet, I apologize. It's just overly sweet. So it's not really that good because to me, too much sweet just takes all the flavor away from it. I was about to dip it in the Jolly Rancher without putting it in the candy batter. And you see how good our toothpick comes in handy. You can use skewers if you want to. I think the skewers are too long, me personally. I don't like using skewers. That's why I choose the toothpick method. But there's like a different way for everything, and I tell you guys this all the time. I teach you guys what works for me. I like showing you guys what I like to do. There's always a different way for everything. I just show you my way and what works for me. Because you can do it and say, oh, I don't like her way of doing this. I like this way better. And that is perfectly fine because there's always a million different ways to do stuff.
So my Jolly Ranchers are almost finished, so I'm just going to start using my spoon so I can pick up more. And just drop it on there. If you wanted to add a flavor to your candy also, you can use the Lorraine's flavor oil, and you can add that instead of adding the Jolly Rancher like I did. But I wanted mine to be Jolly Rancher flavor since we're using Jolly Ranchers as their decorations. I'm running out of space on my mat, so I'm just going to put them to stand up. It'll just give them a flat bottom instead of a flat back. And then you have to dip these real fast also, because depending on the temperature of your house, the candy batter will start to harden really fast, because these are hard crack candy. Okay, so we're almost done with our candy grapes. And then I'm going to show you guys how to easily slip your toothpicks off and get ready to serve them, eat them, enjoy them, put them in the refrigerator. If you're saving them for later, like you don't want to eat them right now, put them in the freezer so that they don't start breaking down as fast, because they do break down very, very quickly. Very, very quickly. Like, I believe candy grapes only last, I think, a maximum of about 2 to 3 hours, depending on how you make them, depending on the time of the year. To me, I find that they last longer in the winter time because it's colder, depending on how hot you keep your house also. In the summertime, if you have them outside, they will almost melt immediately. And the same thing goes for your candy apples also. They melt really quickly. I'm gonna sprinkle it. Some of my candy is still wet. Most of it has already dried and hardened. It gets hard almost immediately after dipping them. They dry really, really quickly. Okay, we're down to our last 3 grapes. So now we're gonna get ready to start pulling off our toothpicks from our grapes and separating it. Last two. Roll it in our Jolly Rancher. Last one. I'm gonna cover it in our Jolly Rancher. Subscribe and make sure you turn on your post notifications so you'll be notified every single time we upload a video. And of course, if you have questions, leave it in the comments and I'll be happy to answer you guys. See you guys later.